We have to start first here with the CEO transition here. This is a surprise, right?
It's a big surprise. This is Jeff's baby. So when you're seeing him kind of step away from the day-to-day operations of CEO, while Andy is very well respected in the space, he leads cloud, it is a big shocker. And, we'll have to kind of wait and see if the strategy will change for Amazon. But he is leaving Amazon in good hands. Though still, this is Jeff Bezos' baby. So it's going to be a wait-and-watch situation to see what happens next.
Poonam, I've scrolled through the entire press release, and there is nothing, not a hint about the why behind this move. Early speculation often isn't a good thing, but what can you tell us about the questions you'll be asking on the call about the why?
Yeah, I think the question is why now? Why when, we're just exiting the pandemic? What's next for Amazon? The cloud business is obviously where the money is, where the profits are. Is that where Amazon wants to kind of put even a bigger focus than that is already there? Digital is the focus for the future. So it's where do they want to take the cloud business from here? I guess that's the big question. And is that why Andy was the chosen person to lead this company?
It's quite fascinating that they dedicate all of 2 lines to this phenomenal transition. And it beggars belief, of course, what they want to do is talk about how successful the business continues to be on a revenue basis. But going forward, how hard a job will this be for the new CEO, for Andy Jassy, when we've seen 2020 just being a year for no other in terms of the pandemic for Amazon? How can it continue to harness this growth and propel it forward?
I think Amazon has plenty of growth ahead of itself in the longer run. I do think, though, in the near term, in 2021, after the first quarter, you will start to see top line moderate, and then that's just really a rule of the large numbers. I mean, they're up against nearly 40% sales comparison in the second and third quarter of last year. So those are big numbers to lap, and the growth will slow. I mean, we expect it to slow in the second and third quarter. First quarter should be okay, and they're going to have to find ways to, just, I guess, beef up that growth. But still, having your sales grow north of 20% over 40% comparison is a tough task for a company of this size.
Yeah, and we're talking their 1Q forecast, net sales of $100 billion to $106. That's above the estimate for about 95 in 1Q. Not seeing any other 1Q numbers, but that's basically what we're looking at in sales here. The idea here that top-line growth seems to be going well. You're seeing some moderation in that growth there. We were just talking about Alphabet, Poonam, and the idea that they're finally breaking out some of their cloud services revenue. There's a lot more competition in this space, or at least more than what Amazon had going back a few years ago. I am curious as to whether we're going to have to see Jassy sort of pivot maybe a little bit in how they pivot and how they pitch Amazon Web Services to people. Is it just going to be sort of a price, sell people on price? Is it going to be on the customer service? What is going to be the pitch here for Amazon in the face of this competition?
The pitch has been priced so far, and we don't expect that to change. Keep in mind that the cloud business, or AWS, is growing, 30% nearly every year, and the market is massive for that still. Amazon in that market owns about a 45% share, and the entire technology market is over $1.5 trillion. So there's plenty of opportunity for Amazon, Alphabet, and others to still gain share. Where they're gaining share from is from the smaller companies and from the market overall as it grows.
Poonam, I'm sorry, Caroline.
You go
ahead.
Can I just ask you, Poonam, a little bit more about the success of AWS under Andy Jassy and how this is a business where that will be steered? What sort of future growth story is for AWS? How, who might take the reins for that particular part of the business?
I don't know who they'll pass the reins to off the top of my head right now. But I think Andy would still very much be involved, given that he has been for so long now. And the drive really there is just to continue to grow that business and acquire more customers to use AWS. It's really a top-line story, and the margins will follow as they gain scale. That's Amazon's business model. I mean, they achieve scale, and then they worry about the profits. And the profits on cloud are already so much healthier than any of their other businesses.
Poonam, I'm trying to think big picture about the direction of the company. We know, of course, it's all AWS, especially with the CEO change, of course, coming later. What else do we know about the background of Andy that might set AWS as Amazon, or is Amazon really now as AWS?
I think, it does show that there's going to be a bigger focus on cloud and technology, but at the end of the day, I do think Andy will still continue to drive share gains, even within the online business. And there's a business that we haven't talked about today, which is advertising, right? Amazon's made a big push on advertising, and we really do think that there's going to be significant growth in that area for Amazon as we move forward into this next decade.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about AWS, I mean, just to put it into perspective, we're still talking about a relatively small slice of revenue versus what they make
12%.
off their,
Yep.
right, so off their regular business. But one thing that we've talked about a lot in these past earnings reports is the idea that a lot of these businesses seem to sort of, I guess for lack of a better word, have synergies. The idea that, the ad business dovetails with the retail business, and that dovetails with the fulfillment business and web services, kind of underlies a lot of that altogether. Is that sort of going to work here with regards to them building out that web business, or do they have to take it in a different direction that isn't necessarily tied to the legacy business of selling stuff online?
I think in the near term, with the growth ahead in AWS, they can still use it, to help build synergies around their other businesses. It doesn't need to be broken out necessarily, because AWS helps their other businesses, right? And you have to remember the cash cow that it is, which Amazon really needs to scale its fulfillment efforts, which still are pretty, while they've done a great job at doing that in the U.S., internationally, they still have a lot of headway to make there.
Poonam, let's talk about some of the other fundamentals of the company. We know that the e-commerce business has been killing it in the pandemic. How are you thinking about e-commerce in a post-COVID world?
Yeah, so we think e-commerce this year, and we published our estimates just last month, will continue to grow, but we see that growth moderating to be in the high single-digit, low double-digit range for 2021, given the tougher comparisons from 2020. So after that, we don't think that 15% mid-teens growth is out of the question for the next few years. E-commerce as a whole in the U.S., if you think pre-pandemic levels, it was around 12% of total retail sales. If you include the brick-and-mortar portion, probably closer to the high teens. And that can easily go to 25 to 30% in the next 5 years, given the surge that we've seen in last year alone.
I'm looking at, of course, the earnings per share, which was such a big beat. We know that, Jeff Bezos' sort of legacy as steering the business as CEO, not only, of course, a founder remaining its executive chair, but he was always about the promise of profits tomorrow, but reinvestment for today. Do we think that that's going to remain part of the Amazon playbook?
I do. Amazon's entire philosophy is about investing for the future, and we'll worry about the profits later. And I don't think that changes. I mean, Jeff Bezos isn't leaving the firm entirely, right? He's still going to be chairman, and I'm sure that he will still be involved to some level, even though he won't be involved in the day-to-day operations. I think the philosophy, at least for now, still holds true. I think they will continue to invest versus worrying about near-term profits.